With the mandatory shutdown, you actually need to shut down all communications, and everybody knows that this is the time you can spend with your family, relax and switch off. The summer shutdown is a period in the summer where every team needs to close for 14 consecutive days. The shutdown was implemented in order to save costs, but most importantly, to give employees in their front team 2 weeks where they're actually free of email, free of work, and make it mandatory so no team would gain an advantage.
From a technical point of view, what does the shutdown mean? Facetiously, it means that we get to go home, have a holiday and not feel guilty for 14 consecutive days because we're not allowed to work or think or do anything to do with making a car get quicker. More technically, what it means is that none of the people who work in wind tunnels or on designing parts for the car or on making parts for the car or on fitting or testing or using any of those parts for the car, none of those people can go about their normal day-to-day activities. So pretty much all the sort of humming, thriving hub of a Formula One team has to just stop. And we get to go home. We're not allowed to look at our emails, we're not allowed to answer phones, we're just simply not allowed to do any of those activities.
To be honest, the pace of Formula One is so relentless. Just having the time, 2 weeks where there's no emails, there's no meetings, where people can go away and rest properly is invaluable. But it's also useful because nobody's working, we can do some of the essential maintenance tasks that we just can't get onto during the normal calendar of racing. We'll work through the whole factory doing maintenance on all of the cooling systems, the heating systems, everything that supports the factory, including lots of work in IT, will get done during this period, because it really is the only 2 weeks where we're properly closed down.
The shutdown is extremely important for our employees. We are working almost 24/7, 365 days a year with extreme pressure. And all of us know that if you go on holiday, your communications with your employees and with your colleagues is never going to stop. With the mandatory shutdown, you actually need to shut down all communications, and everybody knows that this is the time you can spend with your family, relax and switch off.
There are, of course, because it's Formula One, a whole list of exceptions. You are allowed to work on things that are to do with maintenance of your facility. You are allowed to invest in your infrastructure. And it's actually a really useful period, the shutdown, because normally you're so busy designing and making the car and improving it that it's very difficult to work on the campus, on the facility itself. And this provides 2 precious weeks, not just for the majority of the engineers to go home and not think about it for a while, but also for the parts of the team that look after the facility to come wading in and to try and make all the upgrades to the building that we would like to have made during the rest of the year, but we can't do because we're too busy. So they have a very, very busy couple of weeks trying to do that work, all jammed into the couple of weeks where we're not allowed to do our work.
Last year we didn't have a shutdown, probably for the obvious reasons. We'd all been battling through COVID and the shutdown for last August was therefore cancelled. So having a shutdown this year is really important for those people that have worked pretty much continuously now for maybe even 18 months. Because even in the lockdown we had last year, we had people working supporting the NHS with ventilator programs. So for those people in particular, having a proper break in the August that's coming up is really, really important.
How do we adapt our work around the shutdown, and does it help or hinder us? The great thing about the shutdown is it's the same for all teams. Of course, if there were no shutdown, it would be an act of unwarranted self-harm just simply to down tools for a couple of weeks while your competitors marched on and left you 2 weeks of development in their wake. But because there's a mutual non-aggression pact, we say we're all going to do it. It doesn't hurt at all. And in fact, we get all the benefit from doing it because we do get a race team who have been out working pretty much every other weekend out at the races, and a factory who've been working all hours God sends to try and keep them supplied with componentry. We get an opportunity for all those people to rest and recharge for 2 weeks. And that brings a benefit to everyone. It makes the sport more manageable. It makes everyone come back refreshed for the second half of the season and full of vim and vigour to attack it with. Doesn't hurt us in lap time because everyone is doing that. In terms of the sort of minutiae of how do we cope with it, well, we try to, if there's anything sort of big deadline wise, we just try to make sure we get it done either before or arrange to do it straight after. It can be a bit tricky with some of the aspects of preparing for next year's car, because some of the long lead time bits might naturally fall right in the middle of that window. But you just have to adjust your program plans to cope with that, knowing that the same dilemma is faced up and down the pit lane by everyone else, and grateful for the fact that you can take those 2 weeks and recuperate, recharge, and be ready for the second half of the season.
There are some departments that can carry on working, so areas like finance, marketing, but to be honest, we like to close as much of the company as we possibly can during this period of time. The shutdown is really important for everybody because you do notice that you're on this sort of treadmill of working so hard that as the shutdown approaches, you can tell people are starting to think about the break, and you don't really notice how tired you are. So then we have the summer break, and when people come back, you notice a difference in them straight away. And they're recharged and they bring some energy back, and you can feel it in the whole factory that people are ready to go again. We're in the middle of this championship fight at the moment, and I think it's great timing now to have 2 weeks away, recharge our batteries and come back and continue on with the fight.
Personally, I feel the shutdown is a really important period because it allows you to really recharge your battery before starting the second half of the season with extensive travel, car build and development for next year.